Okay, I am happy, delighted to ask Fitrakis to come up here and take over the proceedings. He will be our master of ceremonies for the day. Okay, welcome, Fitrakis.
Well, it's good to be here. I've worked with many of you over the years. My most recent book was the Strip and Flip election of 2016, which in the initial version was highly recommended by Roger Stone, who called it a must-read in the Hill. Then I did the Trump version, and he didn't like it quite as much. But again, the strip is the stripping of the voter rolls, which we're familiar with. And again, I just came in from Ohio, my home state, where once again the annual, it's like the running of the bulls, right? It's a ritual. The annual systematic stripping of the voter rolls in Ohio to make sure that the Republicans can win is going forward. And again, here's the question I've always posed, right? In Ohio, you come in and you have to blindly, without seeing your signature, sign in, right? You have to match a signature. And then you have to produce ID that then matches where you live. Why in a state that requires the signature test and an ID test would you be purging anyone when it's virtually impossible to cheat? I mean, unless you're a savant forger, hi, it's blind. I mean, clairvoyant, right? I mean, you've got to be able to, I anticipate the signature looks like this. And you're showing ID. There's no lot. I understand that, you want to clean up the rubble, but there's a lot of space on the computer. And historically, you know what we used to do? We used to put a little thing saying inactive, right? They haven't voted in a few elections. You didn't fundamentally strip away their constitutional right. Well, when you don't go out and demonstrate for 2 years, you don't get a letter from the Secretary of State in Ohio looking like junk mail that says, look, you haven't demonstrated in 2 years. We've documented it through our surveillance state, hence you no longer have that right. You've got to come down and re-register. Either it's a fundamental right or it's not. And to leave it up to a partisan Secretary of State with no logical reason. We have ID. You can see it's the person. He can't vote unless the ID matches what's in the book. Why are you purging these people? And we know. Because they're from the minority, the black areas, the poor areas of Cleveland, of Cincinnati, of Columbus, of Toledo, of the 9 urban areas. And then every now and then you'll read it. And there's 4 rural counties that don't purge because they know everyone. Okay, so the white counties, in the areas where David Duke thought should be part of Aryan Nation, they don't have to clean up their rolls. It's just the urban areas that we got to. And we know what urban's code for. Where minorities and poor people live. So, again, 250,000 purges in January of this year, now another 235,000. Although even the mainstream hedge fund-owned daily newspaper in Columbus took a look and found out at least 20,000 voters in the first week or two shouldn't have been purged. It was a mistake. The Republican Secretary of State made a mistake. Okay, so how do you turn battleground states into close wins for Republicans. You purge. Okay, just a few more things, right? The other ritual is DEF CON, which just occurred. The hacking of the machines. I think there were new record times out there. I think it should be an Olympic event. Highly televised. All categories. Best hacking over the internet. Best use of a flash drive. Best drive-by from the parking lot. Okay, so what I briefly want to remind us, because most of you know this already, that we had this computerized voting in the United States, an interlocking industrial complex of political operatives, technicians, vendors, who are occasionally former felons or crooks. I'm from Ohio. When Big Patsy Galena came in to give the check to Matt Bamschroeder in Franklin County, he didn't want anything. He was a seller of systems. Okay, recall that it's the Norton-Coleman optical scan voting system that's first used in an actual election in Orange County in 1964. So, and then later, again in 74 in Chicago, you had the DREs, sort of paperless wonders. Look, we're being eco-green, right? It's 4 years after Earth Day. We don't need that paper to actually recount. We can just feel the recount. Right? Yeah, Republican. So, in March of 75, electronic experts Roy G. Saltman, how many again are familiar with Roy G. Saltman, right? The man who warned us, right? He had the canaries in the cage and they were all dying on him and he kept shouting. In 1975, Roy G. Saltman worked for the National Bureau of Standards. He wrote effective use of computing technology in vote counting. Here he's writing in 75. So Saltman says the following, quote, increasingly computerization of election-related functions may result in the loss of effective control over those functions by responsible authorities, and that this loss of control may increase the possibility of vote fraud. Okay, and he was really writing right from the first time they were used in 64. Shockingly, apparently you can program computers and hack them. And Saltman was able to realize this. I know some of you, right? I mean, we're Americans. Why not have an honor system? Faith-based voting. Why don't we simply accept on principle what private, partisan, for-profit, corporate entities who secretly program our votes say? I mean, why do you have to be troublemaker out there, causing trouble? Why not trust private partisan companies like Depot? Oh, I know. Sure, there's a problem. Worldwide pattern of fraud. Could happen to any corporation. Particularly if they can make a lot of money off that. So, again, we know the problems and the same problems over and over again, right? The strategic undervote. Remember the famed Florida one a few years back in the hotly contested congressional election. 13% of the voters didn't vote. Statistically, it doesn't match any of the other areas, any of the other congressional races. I'm from Ohio, so in Montgomery County, you recall in 2006, a calibration problem caused a 30,000 undervote glitch. They simply weren't recorded. The votes weren't recorded. And then in the report, they noted that it was impossible to audit the electronic machine once it had glitched. Why? Because it had glitched. There's a secret code. There's no way to, and there's no paper in the machine, right? The joys of the DRE. Just a few more things we ought to consider. Again, my favorite is, right, the International Foundation for Election Systems, the U.S. government going forth to all the world and bringing them the joys of electronic voting. Again, this is the CIA, right, in the 1970s that admitted to rigging over 5,000 elections and came up with a term for it, again, called a benign operation. Benign meaning friendly because it wasn't a bloody, filthy coup that killed tens of thousands of people, as in Indonesia in '65 and elsewhere. So this international foundation, working with the Bureau of Social Science Research, they're the ones that help spread for the U.S. government the joys of electronic voting worldwide. You might want to know the Bureau of Social Science Research, founded in 1915, division of the School of Social Sciences and Public Affairs at American University, came of a nonprofit in '56, and was used as a propaganda tool of the CIA. Major area of studies included, quote, communication research, international program evaluation, educational research, urban renewal and community relations, military sociology, and the sociology of occupations. That's right, the ones bringing democracy and advising our government also specialize in the sociology of occupying militarily other countries. Just a few things, you can find this at Yale University Roper Library that has a lot of their papers. Also, according to Professor Alfred McCoy, the CIA clandestinely underwrote the Bureau of Social Science, particularly its study of tortures. Okay, so it's got a good provenance, right? Torture, occupation, these are the people you want to go forward and represent democracy. And again, meanwhile, Roy Saltman keeps popping his head up. 1988, accuracy, integrity, and security in computerized voting tallies. Okay. Quote, here's the conclusion. Possibilities that unknown persons may perpetrate undiscoverable frauds. So he keeps looking at this stuff over and over again and seeing the obvious. And writing about it, and the government keeps ignoring it. Meanwhile, right, you've got the proliferation of these electronic machines, not just after the 2000 election, but really, if you want to think about it, you've got it in the election 1988 in places like New Hampshire, where the former CIA, there used to be an agreement, right? The CIA director does not run for president. Why? He's the CIA director, the man who keeps the secrets. So, and then you recall that, again, John Sununu, computer guy, governor of the state, brings in the legendary Danaher. But really before that, right, and what were they? We know they were Shooptronics, after R.F. Shoop, the company founder, who was convicted in 1979 for conspiracy to defraud the federal government in connection with a bribe attempt to obtain voting machine business, according to the Commercial Appeal newspaper. So only the finest. And when I voted on these in Ohio in 2004, you know, they were Shoot Products, they were Danaher. So that made me feel better that you would change the name and kept the same, machine from a criminal. It makes you feel better when you see that different branding. So again, let's recall some of the other things. Not only you recall in '88 when they brought the voting machines into Manchester, the biggest city. Bush was losing by 8 points, and then he won by 9 in the last tracking point. An unbelievable, unanticipated 17% shift. And the Washington Post chastised itself for not seeing this grassroots swelling for the former CIA director, who was there when they were rigging elections all over the world. You've got a variety of those things that have happened over time. I remember 1996, when no one anticipated Chuck Hagel running for the U.S. Senate in Nebraska against the popular incumbent Democrat, the governor at the time. Hagel had never been elected to public office, but he also happened to be part owner of ES&S. And what democracy doesn't allow the people that own the voting machine companies and secretly program them to run under them. And again, right, in 2012, the former guys at Bainco buy up Hart InterCivic. I know what you're saying, Dr. Fitrakis, there's a reason for that. Hart InterCivic is good. They were only 0 for 12 on computer election security, right? I remember the Everest study, my favorite study, there in Ohio, violated fundamental principles of isolation, meaning the entrance into one precinct allows you, because no isolation principle, to compromise the entire county. I mean, that's efficiency, right? You only got to get into, if you're going to hack the election, all you need to do is to get into one precinct, and you can take down the whole county. Okay. So we've got story after story regarding the problems with elections. My favorite, though, I like to look back and I like to do a little historical reflection. The coverage of the 1980 Iowa Republican caucus, which first began, a man like Michael Connell was helping out in that, very young college-age student who was keeping track of votes using emerging computer technology. Here's the Manchester Union leader, quote, "The Bush operation had all the smell of a CIA covert operation. Strange aspect of Iowa operation included a long, slow count, and then the computer broke down at a very convenient point." Good thing we've never seen that again. With Bush having a 6-point bulge over Reagan. So finally, Bush wins by unexpectedly 10 points, picking up another 4 or 5 points after the computer strategically goes down. Okay, well, let me skip a ton of that because I would like to give 10 minutes for questions, and I think you know how the story ends. But I would like to point out, in March 2004, I wrote an article for MotherJones.com, who later attacked Harvey Wasserman based on sending a guy in who talked with one Democratic Party. They actually used my secret source. The party chair at the time, my source, who told them no, there was no problems with the election. So the guy who's leaking me all the data is telling, worried about his job, saying no problem, really, it's all pretty good here. At the same time, he's leaking like a sieve providing the data that suggests the election was stolen, right? And remember again, right? Well, there was no proof anything went wrong. We found the architectural map from the Secretary of State's office that had a back door to Chattanooga. I mean, since when do you do that? And since when do you sign a contract, which we had? We put in the King Lincoln case. You sign a contract that says 14 months in advance. Since your supercomputer is going to go down, you need a backup plan run by private contractors, all high up in the Republican Party, including Jeff Hagerbeck of SmartTech. And at the same time, he's going to be running the GWB 43 site for the White House, and the Swift voters that are attacking Kerry, and every Republican Party. All of that sitting on the same servers. All of this we write about, begin to write about in March of 4. Again, in the Free Press, we put my newspaper in Ohio, put it on the cover story. The guy who came to me, Ethan Gibbs, died 1 week after this came out. Ethan Gibbs, came at me and yelled at me when I was doing talk radio. It's like, look at Debo. Look at Debo, he says. I mean, all the bank machines have audit trails and paper. Why would you create a voting machine with no way to recount? And he's also the guy who pointed out the Savage brothers, the Uroseviches, whatever way we wish to pronounce it, is that they had worked with the government, including the CIA on some of the early software. But tragically, he died 1 week. And I did get a fairly blind note from somebody saying Ethan Gibbs is dead, who never identified themselves. So, again, Wally Odell, remember, nothing like being a little pioneer and ranger bundling hundreds of thousands of dollars for the president while your GEM system, your general election management system, is counting the votes in Ohio, where you've written a letter promising to deliver the electoral vote. I mean, how do we get away with it? I mean, how do they get away with this? And again, Michael Kahn, you remember the tragic death of Michael Kahn. Cliff Arnebeck and I subpoenaed him, and shortly after that, and again, I did warn him not to fly. For the record, I was very straight. His attorney yelled at me, his high-priced attorney. I said, if I was you, I would not be flying in that little small plane. But again, 2001 GovTech solution, before they show up in Ohio in 04, he was being able to be the first private individuals to get behind the firewalls in the U.S. Judiciary, Intelligence, and Administration, House Administration Committee. So, I'll end there and take a few questions. My notion is, all this stuff, we know exactly what's going on. There's tons of proof. They're in the process of stripping right now in anticipation of flipping the battleground states. And it's often interesting that the universal laws of statistics seem to apply in the non-battleground state, but any time a state is close, the exit polls are so far outlined with reality, it would suggest that it's normal to be a homo necrosophiliac or Jeff Epstein, who I wrote about. So when we think about it, none of this makes any sense. Their ability to sell the irregularly bizarre blatantly to us. Any questions?
Well, I just a comment, and I know, yeah, they did something to the state, but I was canvassing in Nevada when it was Perry versus W. And gosh, the whole day, it's just good news rolling in. Oh, man. So when I got back to the hotel, I thought, I have time to go shower and change my clothes and then come back. By the time I came to the convention room, W had won it. Big time. I almost said fair. Big time. So what happened?
No, well, again, as we say in Ohio, it's never over till the cyber vote comes in. 2000, a last second 6% shift, unanticipated, sold to us by the notion that for the first time in history, old order Amish leaped into buggies, whipped their horses, and showed up for the first time ever, producing an extra 20,000 votes in Knox County. I mean, the stories of what happens are totally implausible, and it's always this last second flip, hence the strip and the flip.
Can you
If there's
try
any
the
more
other
questions,
microphone?
could you please come to this microphone because we are not able to pick you up.
Could you try the other microphone that they just put
Yeah.
something on?
Hello.
Yeah, that's better. Give me your other one.
Okay.
You can take that one off. But if anybody has any questions, I would ask that you come to
Yes,
this microphone.
any last question?
Thank you. Just come on up if you have them over here. Sorry, microphone situation is precarious, but they are working pretty well here. A little up.
What we're doing now, and we relate, the notion is they need to be directly confronted. I just wrote an editorial in my paper saying Frank LaRose is a criminal. In a just society, somebody should arrest him. Some county prosecutor, because it's happening all over the state. I think we got to be unyielding in terms of what we demand. And we also could say, look, we could be just like the European Union. It shall be the duty of the election official to register the citizens to vote. Not difficult. So unless we confront these people, nobody else is gonna. I mean, I envision at its best it should be the same way when Lyndon Johnson could not speak at anywhere but military bases because people were so outraged over the Vietnam War. I think we have to be relenting and not give on any of this stuff. Well, we got to clean up the voting rolls. Well, yeah, hook up with a county reporter's office if somebody's dead. They've got records there. It's a state office. Why in the hell are you using the Bureau of Motor Vehicles when you can use your own state records? They know where people live. They know where citizens live. They have all sorts of state records that indicate it. So I think direct confrontation with these people.
Right.
Well, I've got
Because
one
we
more
know the
question.
media is not reporting a lot of what's going on, right? So
I do, but we need to be our own media, and I think we're streaming this. I think we need to create our own entities, as I had. Last question.
So Bob, just a follow-up to that, which is basically how deep do you think the deep state goes in this? I mean, Mike Connell, you came within an eyelash of having him testify and blow this whole thing up. In Georgia, they came within an eyelash of finding the fraud in Ossoff animals, and they destroyed the server. So and Ethan Gibbs, the 18-wheeler that took his life. So somewhere, you get close and you're right there, and if it goes, that seems to imply that there's a larger operation that is kind of keeping an eye and control of all this. How deep, how central?
Well, now, I think if you're practicing hegemon stabilization theory, if you're in a country that's the world's most powerful nation, I think that, and you've got an organization that publicly says, goes out publicly and talks about demonstration democracies. You want democracies, you don't really want them to be real, but you want them to create faith in a system. I think you challenge all of that, and there's a weapon for us to do it. It's called the pencil and paper. We've got the weapons, and I think we should be unyielding.
So if we're making these allegations all the time, we're coming up with all this evidence and forensics, and then the line back is, well, we don't want to run with that because we've erode or destroy voter confidence in our elections. What do you say here?
Well, the election of George W. Bush through clear fraud and the perpetration of fraud in Florida and hiring private entities to strip votes. It's already happened, the election of Donald Trump, in a strange vote, and exit polls indicating otherwise in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and we really should, again, I was the attorney there for Jill Stein, but we really should, and I know some people in this room pushed very hard in those efforts, but suddenly the breaking of seals here and no paper there needs again to be directly confronted. And again, this doesn't mean, of course, I want random audits everywhere. I'm a political scientist. Whatever we can do in the middle of this system that doesn't produce fair and equitable results, we can do as well. Thank you.
Just two things, and we'll let Bob introduce the next speaker. But up on my feed on Facebook, if you go into Facebook searching and you type in Voting Rights Task Force, you see 3 pages come up. And the one you want is National Voting Rights Task Force Conference, and you should see the live feed there. And we encourage you to like it and share it. Let's spread this across the internet as much as we can. And secondly, for any speakers that have their slides, their PowerPoints on thumb drives, take them to Dale, the good man in the beret. Okay, and he'll get those loaded up.